I'm gonna go up here and start the data logging. Let's give this a second and we'll fire it up here. We do have the idle RPM jumps a little bit as it's firing off right there. And it also takes a little bit longer to start than I'd like, so we're gonna address those two things here if we can get everything to decel back into idle quick and do exactly what we want. So far so good. So a couple more things we want to take a look at. Now, it looks like it's controlling right here, desired idle speed. Everything looks good right there. Let me go and just blip the throttle and test this out and see how it decels back into our idle. Let's see what happens, if the change that we just made, if it makes any difference here. Let me blip it real quick. So it still falls slow back into idle. It's not terrible, and it does catch the idle fairly well. It's not horrible. Let's try that again. Let's just blip it. Looking here, it's in that target end mode. And then it goes to driver demand, snaps out of it, and kind of settles out into the idle. So the throttle angle here, in terms of the control where it starts from, we changed that ETC versus airflow table. That should have improved that control, give it a better starting point. So it didn't make a whole lot of difference making those updates and changes we just did in the decel tables. So let's go in, let's start to make a few other changes here. Now, what I'm going to do is start to modify the throttle body data because I see an error here. While it's not a large error, it can make a difference in that return back to idle. So let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. So the ETC throttle angle error showing that there is about a almost 2-degree error here in our throttle body model. We know right now the effective area, that's going to give us the position in the table. Doesn't look like our manifold vacuum is moving. Usually it moves around, it's not changing. I don't know if there's something wrong with that PID channel that's broken. Maybe it's not working, whatever, we're just going to ignore it. But we know we're around 0.01, 0.09 inches squared in our effective area table. What this is going to do is allow us to hone into the position of where we're at. So under airflow, under electric throttle, we have our predicted throttle angle. This is going to be telling us in this effective area inches squared where we're at. We're somewhere right about here. Now, we also have an effective area, which is the inverse. If we start to make some editing and changing here, this could allow us to decel quicker back into idle. In those decel conditions, it's possible. Let's go ahead and pause this real quick. In the decel conditions, we do see we have a fairly large error right here as we're decelerating. That's in the 0.057 inches squared. When we're seeing a larger error here, while it's not out of control, it is an error here. When we're seeing these errors, it could mean that we have or it does mean that we have a throttle body modeling problem. So the data isn't 100%, and so that could be causing the hang up, the slower return into idle speed as it's going into that target end mode under our torque-based decel conditions. So we want to go in and fix this real quick. I'm going to go in and try to change some of our table around here. So at 0.057, and what we need to do here, and that's going to be right between these 2 points. So 0.04, 0.07. I like to change the columns the same when I do edit these. I'm going to go in here to edit. We have to use the ETC area effective calculator because this table here has this inverse, and we have to make sure these are matching. They have to jive together. If they don't, it can throw us into a throttle shutdown mode, which we want to avoid. So let's go ahead and try changing this real quick. We're going to be using our calculator. So in here, I'm going to go from 0.01 to right about 0.07. I'm going to reduce the values down. That should shrink that percentage of throttle angle error that we're seeing here. I'm going to go bring them down about 30%. So I'm going to type in 0.7 and multiply. And I'm going to go here between 0.07 and 0.22. It's right in here. And it's going to interpolate to bring these values down. Now, when I do this, I'm going to be using the calculate effective area, which is going to be calculating that inverse table. So it's going to make sure we put the right numbers in the inverse so it does that lookup properly, the index properly, and that everything should work and it's not going to throw us into a reduced throttle engine power mode. We're not going to have any kind of weird torque clips or anything that's going to be holding us back right there. So we're trying to fix this error here, and I suspect that the error that we're finding, we should see this as close to zero as possible, but this error that we're seeing here, that's probably why it's slower to return down into idle. So I fixed it at idle. So if we're looking here just in a solid idle, there is a bit of error here, almost a 2-degree error. and then the decel, there's almost a 3-degree error. So we can see here that should have an influence on how it interpolates the airflow to throttle angle control, and it should maybe line up better in our decel conditions. So we're gonna go ahead and try to fix this. Let's go ahead here and flash this real quick, and we'll give this a shot. Now, there is something else I wanted to cover real quick here. As I was mentioning, when we crank over the engine, it seems to crank just a little bit slower than I'd like. Doesn't crank right off and fire up just like it would stock. Now, we've changed a lot of parts on here, so yes, it's not going to necessarily start like stock, but we should always strive for OEM-like quality for starting and idling and everything that goes along with how the vehicle is going to drive. So what I want to do right now is quickly just talk about, as we're flashing this change for our throttle body data, I want to go in and also make a flash update in our fuel model, specifically under our cranking fuel. I suspect it needs more cranking fuel.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.